Every Sunday, 9 a.m. to 12 noon. Yeah, I got a brand new time. Bigger, better, bigger, better. So check me out this Sunday, 9 a.m. to 12 noon. I'm looking for you on Sister Station 106.3.
Rejoice 102.3, an exciting mix of music and ministry.
Stay connected to your favorite host and shows on Rejoice 102.3 by liking the Rejoice 102 Facebook fan page now. Log on to rejoice102.com and click on the like button. Keep up with the hottest celebrity interviews, the best new music, and inspirational ministries on the station that brings you the ultimate gospel experience. Like us at Rejoice 102.3.
Hey America, we need to have a little talk. I don't know if you've noticed, but we got a lot of food in this country. A lot of peaches, a lot of corn, a lot of apples, a lot of everything. We've got so much food that we can't even eat it all. So if we got all this extra food, how are 17 million kids in America struggling with hunger? I just don't get it. That's why the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks gathers surplus food and gets it to the hungry kids who need it. They can get you food even if you live in Idaho or Alaska or somewhere crazy like that. This isn't complicated. We got extra food and we've got hungry kids. Feeding America's done the math. Now it's your turn. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org. I know you got internet on your phone, so what are you waiting for? We can't do it without your help. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Stay tuned for a pleasant encounter with Miss Geraldine Smith for the next 30 minutes. Join Miss Smith on a spiritual journey as she shares with you about having faith in God and that all things are possible. Her life story and experiences will educate, motivate, and inspire God's people to move to the next level in their lives. And now, a pleasant encounter with Miss Geraldine Smith.
We are intelligent, beautiful, and strong. And we will use our intellect to behave that way. We will let our spirit guide our intellect in all of our affairs to empower ourselves, the youth, by practicing the 3 C's: concentration, consistency, and collaboration for inner peace and outer harmony. Highway to Freedom's affirmation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to A Pleasant Encounter. This is Miss Geraldine Smith right here, WYCA 102.3 FM, your Rejoice Gospel Network. Ladies and gentlemen, I have Mr. Red Ross here, who's going to represent the Original Man Construction Company, as well as we have Attorney Allen here, and of course we got Brian here, and my man sitting next to me is Mr. Norma Upshaw, right? One of the members of the Crawford Broadcasting sitting right here. Tonight we have a slightly different type of program. We're going to talk about some issues that's facing us right now. And it's the police and how they have prostituted their office to do things and things that's not all the time right for people. All the killings that's going on, everything that's affecting our children. And I want to even dive into the effects of after these mothers and families are losing the family member, and after the investigation is over with, how really is that affecting a lot of the parents, and what's the follow-up on that and all that good stuff. I'm going to let Mr. Allen, since he's the legal expert in the room, to take charge and just run with this. Mr. Allen.
Good evening. Thank you very much. I don't know if I'm the expert. I think the people who live in those communities are the real experts on what's going on in their communities. I think that on the one hand, we clearly have a lot of police brutality going on, a lot of kids being killed, African-American kids being killed all over the country, not just in Chicago. Mm-hmm. But we also see an uprising of protest going on all over the city. We've had marches in the city of Chicago for the last week and a half. Every night, I believe, there's been one. Mm-hmm. And we just had over the summer, we had young people themselves getting it together, putting out a full report on the incidents of police brutality and deaths caused by the police, published it, and then raised the money, traveled to Geneva, presented it to the Human Rights Council of the United Nations, had a really powerful demonstration there. They all stood up, grasped hands, and showed the world when the State Department started telling about how everything was under control and how they prosecuted 3 or 4 cops, and they're like, well, so what? They're still killing kids out here in the community. So 3 or 4 cops being prosecuted by the feds doesn't mean anything. Last Thursday, they came back to Chicago and they made a presentation to the community at Roosevelt University. One of the more powerful events that I've been at in a long time. Looking at these young people representing and describing what happened to them and the level of maturity and the level of sophistication that they clearly come through a whole process. And they didn't know each other when they started, and these 8 kids put it together, went all the way to Geneva, presented to the world what's going on in Chicago. They were joined by people from Ferguson who went, the parents from Ferguson went down. Mike Brown's parents were over there in Geneva. People from the ACLU nationally were there. So this is a major production worldwide and got press all over the country, all over the world. We've gotten press from Singapore covering this same incident. So things are happening. I mean, yesterday there were tens of thousands of people in New York City, closed down big chunks of the city. We had the march in D.C. yesterday. Again, thousands of people marching on the mall in numbers and racial mixes that we haven't seen in decades. So people are on the move here, and I think that finally people are beginning to wake up that this is not the way to run society. This just is not the way to do things. The police, the way they're operating now, are causing more problems than they're solving. They're not making the community safer.
So how do we, I mean, what is the outcome going to come, you think, in your opinion? With all the uprising of the marching and people demonstrating and the youth even raising their hands and standing up and raising their heads up saying no more, Black Lives Do Matter and all that.
I'm not going to predict the future. I'll tell you what I hope is going to be the outcome. I hope that people are going to, in larger numbers, insist that the police are going to be accountable to the community again, that they're no longer going to treat particularly poor communities of color as the enemy, as occupied territory, that they need to come in their armored tanks and occupy and treat the kids in the community as enemy that has to be conquered. Instead, they're going to become part of the community. They're going to treat them as they do in the white suburbs, as their friends and neighbors who are there to actually protect instead of there to harass and send off to prison. And we're going to start closing down the prisons because, frankly, part of the problem in these communities is we rip so many people out of them that we destroy the social fabric of these communities. One of the earlier shows you asked me, what how come when people come from stable families they break down in prison? And my response was, well, they don't come from stable families. And the reason they don't is a large part of the reason they don't is because the police have come in and arrested so many people. So many people have records. So many people have spent time in prison. Once you're in prison, it's so hard to get a job once you get out. The police are making this whole situation worse. We need fewer police. We need police that are accountable. And instead, we need schools. We need mental health clinics. We need recreation. We need tutoring. We need all the stuff that actually builds community ties. Yes. That's the way you make a community safe, not by occupying it. And we were talking earlier, just this last week, we had one of the 2 twins that was murdered. And immediately, the response by their principal of a charter school down there in Inglewood was, let's declare martial law to solve this problem. That's the wrong direction. That's enemy. That's what you're talking about, an enemy. We need fewer charter schools. We need more public schools. We need more community schools. We need more community institutions, churches, recreation programs. All that kind of stuff is what we need in order to build strong community ties. That's what makes a community safe, not an occupying army. It hasn't worked anywhere in the world. Why should it work at Inglewood?
We get, at the Law Center, I'd say maybe 40 letters a week about guys that have been brutalized and made to sign a false confession. They can't read or write. When I try to decipher the letter, I'm like, what does this say? But when you read the police report, it's, he wrote in perfect English, and we have a great law firm that we get to refer these guys to. But the problem is we've stopped building schools. We've stopped investing in children. I mean, it's so hard to get your child into a kindergarten. You got to get on a waiting list. You got to get on a waiting list for this type of school and that type of school. We need to invest in building enough schools and having enough teachers. We don't need more prisons. We don't need more police. We need more educators, and we need more loving parents. We need to teach the children what love is. And a hug goes a long way. I mean, I remember coming home and the best feeling was when I got a hug from my mom. How was your day? I'm happy Mom got me. But nowadays, as kids come home and mom's at work and they're by themselves and dad's in prison because of the demonizing certain neighborhoods. Or, I got a hoodie on. You got the right to shoot me because I got a hoodie. why don't you take off serve and protect and just serve and shoot? You know, put it on the side of the car. We're going to shoot you. We're not going to help you. We're not here to help you. We're just here to shoot you. I mean, they're not going to prosecute these cops. Or if they do prosecute the cop, he's going to be on there, but my job is so stressful. I never know what I'm walking into. Well, if I say my job is stressful, I don't know who's breaking into my house, and I shoot him, and you're going to send me to prison because somebody's coming in my house to hurt me. Where an officer, he go kick in somebody's door, and a guy, I don't know who it is. You know?
Or in Cleveland, they shot a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
Within seconds of pulling up. Black kid playing in the park. He had a BB gun, but it was only a BB gun. But they didn't give any chance at all to say anything. They just pulled up, and within 12 seconds, he was dead. So
But there was a time when we set that foundation because the little boys used to always want to be a Clint Eastwood or John Wayne or whatever person that used to shoot them on TV.
Cowboys and Indians.
See that.
Yeah. Cowboys
So
and
look,
Indians.
we have also in some of our homes have taught that you're not a real boy unless you carry a gun or have those play guns or whatever. If a little boy wanted to play with a pot and a pan, we called him another name.
Yeah.
I'll say that if this is a girl's toy versus a boy's toy. We didn't look at it as this could be a chef one day.
Right.
You know, we the people, we stigmatized certain things and made them so ugly. We set these things in motion. We did that. And then now, the prejudiceness, the unfairness of the one who's supposed to be protecting us is the one who's actually destroying us.
When you could get a permit and a license and open up a factory in Chicago or here to make guns, all you got to do is get a license. This is my business. And you pay your little fee. I can start making cheap 25 automatics and sell them for $50 on the streets. Oh, it doesn't mean that that's the ones that I'm selling to the government and legally, they have the stamps on them. Because they caught that lady in California building very cheap guns, none of them had serial numbers, and one box would go out this door, one box would go out that door. You know, and it's, why do we have kids running around with military weapons? An AK-47 is not for Chicago, and that's the same for the police. These police jump out with these riot suits on like they're Darth Vader or whatever that guy is, carrying their machine guns.
Because they're in Chirac, right?
Yeah,
Right.
And they're allowed just to shoot whoever they want to shoot, and it's so sad because as the public, we need to come out and just say enough is enough. You know, enough.
Absolutely.
No more pay raises because they get paid so much. They get full benefits. They get everything. But what happened to Officer Friendly when we were growing up? It's just like we were talking about how churches used to be open. The police, when I was a kid, I knew all the police in our neighborhood. Now, only time you see a police is when he's pulling you over. They don't care. They don't walk around. They don't try to know who's in the neighborhood, who's good, who's bad. And the sad part is, you're black. You're in the wrong neighborhood. You're a troublemaker. You're a gangbanger. Oh, you want to wear blue gym shoes? You got to be hooked up, or you got a bandana. And it's half the guys are like, huh? You know, this is the hip suit, the Pele Pele. You know, and everybody's got them on, and next thing you know, it's, oh, that's gang colors. You're going to jail. You know, and then they go to jail and they're lost.
Well, bottom line is everything is all a disconnect. I mean, that's really what the bottom line is. It's like you said with the police officers, and add to that, what it comes down to, officers it's gone from serve to protect to ego. It's how big my ego is, and how big and bad I can use my authority. You know, they have the authority, but ego gets in the way. They don't know how to separate job from the personality. They don't know how to separate what the job details from who they are as a person. And when you can't do that, and when you won't do that, I won't say can't, when you won't do that, then that is a big problem. And you're absolutely right. When it comes down, when y'all talk about should be more schools and should be more things to educate, and yeah, it really should be. It really should be, because that's the only way that young people are going to be able to flourish is through education. I mean, if you're locking people up, and what you're really doing by having prisons and all of these sort of things, you're talking about having a future. There's not going to be a future. I mean, who's going to be the next generation and the next generation after that if you are doing what you're doing right now? You might as well just not even have a United States of America if that's going to be the case. I mean, after we all are dead and gone, who is it going to be in the hands of? If that's going to be the case, I mean, it's not going to be in the hands of anybody. I mean, you really think about it. If at the rate this keeps up, you might as well not even have a USA. You might as well not even have it. This country might as well not even exist anymore. And that's going to be a sad day whenever that happens.
Well, I had a question, and I don't know if anybody else has noticed. There's 2 schools within 6 blocks of me. One is Coonley Grade School. The other is Bell Grade School. And I watched as they closed all these schools over the past summer. But they put $8 million in the Coonley School to expand it. They did the same thing with Bell School to expand it and basically they took the whole play area around it and made it into buildings. Why are we closing schools? Because we don't have the money to run them, but we have enough money to invest in certain schools that are in white neighborhoods. And that's the key, because these are white neighborhoods where this is happening. What are we doing where we're not all standing up in city councils talking, enough's enough? Either all y'all get on your job or get out. Just get out. We don't need you no more.
And that's what I was gonna go back to. That's where that accountability, that old word, that my favorite word to use is accountability. That's where, if we see that the other folks are not going to do it, that's where the good folks in the community need to get to the point of saying, you know what, enough of this. Enough of seeing my relative, enough of seeing the child down the street from me. I'm tired of seeing this, but folks, and I'm going to say in this society, in this generation today, is so much of an I, me, selfish society to the point where, who cares about the next door neighbor? I remember a time when there was a big mama on the block. There was a block club where you had you had the big papa, you had the big mama, you had that. You had that going on, but now it's every family for themselves, every man for themselves. You bet not say nothing to my child. You bet not do this, you bet not do that. So if you're wondering how come we got this the way it is, some of it is selfishness on the part of our own communities, because we won't allow Big Mama that we've been knowing for years to do anything. But then when someone come in outside that we know nothing about, then we in an uproar. I mean, priorities got to get back in the right place, first off.
Yeah, I want to push back a little bit. I mean, it's clearly there are some issues, but I don't want to be demonizing our young people. There's some wonderful young people out there doing some really wonderful things. Oh, yeah. So to say that all this generation is about me, I don't think that's true. Not the young people I know. A lot of them aren't. There are, but there always were. I don't want to romanticize the past either. I mean, I just on the TV last week was Serpico, the man who brought down the cops in New York City in the 1970s. And he said, they were just as dirty back then. The difference back then was they had to plant a gun. These days, they don't even bother. But let's not romanticize the police as 30 or 40 years ago as being wonderful, officer-friendly on the block, because they weren't. I also don't want to demonize the individual officers today. Yeah, I don't think that we have the wrong people as police officers. I don't think it's got bad people as police officers. It's the institution of policing that's not on the right track. It takes even the best people, chews them up, and spits them out. Just like prison system. All guards are not terrible people, but it's a terrible institution, and people who work there become dehumanized. And the same thing I think is true of police. If your job is to go in there and arrest a whole bunch of young black men because they're holding an ounce of weed, then you can't anymore look at them as real people. You can't live with yourself. So all of a sudden they become Chirac, and they become the enemy, and you're walking around in tanks with machine guns all of a sudden. So I don't think it's that we have the wrong people. It's that we have the wrong institutions. They're built wrong. And the reason we don't have the big mamas anymore is because half of them have been displaced from the community, and they don't have those kinds of institutions where they meet their neighbors anymore. I mean, they didn't just become influential because they've been on the block a long time. They became influential because their kids went to school with each other, because they might have been in church or the PTA or whatever community institutions they were involved in. People got to know them and respect them. And those institutions don't exist anymore. So she's sitting in fear behind her door, and the police are coming ripping and running down the streets, and the kids are ripping and running down the streets. So it's not that everybody's a terrible person all of a sudden, because we're all human beings, just like we've always been.
But you know, I let me say this. I do see, I'm a witness. I saw good cops, bad cops, right? Out of that 19 years I did in prison.
Mm-hmm.
But what I saw about all cops inside of there, they were damn cowards.
Mm-hmm. They would only come and cruise.
They didn't stand for nothing but what the system said.
Right.
And to protect their paycheck.
Yep.
They saw and became eyewitness of things that was wrong, and they were too coward to stand up against.
And the exact same thing is true of police. That's that blue wall you see. Police will
that's what it is.
Arrest anybody else, but never
not,
their fellow officers.
When you see something wrong and you don't stand against it, that means that you are condoning it, and it is okay with you, because it goes back to being selfish and greedy. It's all about yourself. What kind of car you can buy, how many bills you got to pay at the cost of another human being life.
Right, and you know, and I was just going to say no, and I'm not. And when I say about society, of course, you got great people in the society. I'm not sitting here and saying that it's everybody, but I'm just saying how society has over the years have allowed, you know, how it's disintegrated instead of becoming better. It's become worse over the years. I mean, and yeah, and each generation, you've always had good and bad, ugly and in between, and that's always has been.
And my preaching is the same. It is always these cell phones, these computers. My nieces, I went to for Thanksgiving. My niece is in her bedroom with Facebook. My nephew's in his doing Worlds of Warfares or something like that. And they don't even know each other. They're all on everybody's too busy on their phone. And I was sitting there looking at everybody this Thanksgiving dinner. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? And I got up and I said something. I said, well, would you put your phones down for a while? We're supposed to be here to see each other.
It's a robotic society. They'd rather Facebook you than come ask you, do you want some tea? But when you're talking about police, I just was with Fred Hampton's wife today that was laying in the bed next to him. So you don't want to hear about what police do and been doing. But to move on, I'm just giving bullet points. I don't have no long conversation. My bullet point is we missing so many things with hidden hands. When Obama was giving a speech, the guy that went into New Orleans, he gave a speech and said how he could save us $25 billion out to $500 billion. His situation is to go in and kill them all. He don't have no conversations for him. You know who I'm talking about, the guy from Blackwater. You got different movements where people not paying attention. They're not asking the right questions, but they got all the answers. So you missing the whole solution part where we got solutions in the hands-on community, like what Ms. Smith works at Life Builders United, where the network is with the CHIPS. Children with incarcerated parents, you got parts that you're missing where you're not even seeing. It's hidden hands behind everything you're saying. Now you to switch the gears, you talking about Karen Lewis. That could be Emmanuel hands down in her sleep. She come up with a brain tumor. How did the teachers union figure out she had a brain tumor? Don't every time something happen with you in medical, the doctors come out and announce it?
Yeah.
We're not paying attention. We done dropped the ball on so many things.
But the doctor can't announce it.
That's why I don't.
HIPAA.
I'm listening. Listen to what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm listening how when she was up top, how she faded out. You got to understand Emmanuel's war chest is bigger than what you may think it is. Mm-hmm. So what we looking at, it ain't what it is. The hidden hands has always been there. They're always going to be there. And our community resides in our heart and our hands.
Well, I think what I tell everybody is, understand this. As taxpayers, you paid for my torture and Geraldine's torture because you didn't follow your representatives and understand what they were voting on. To put you alone and just make your brain like that. No, you should have had a fair trial. You should have everything right. I should have been put in solitary confinement for 12 years because I won a grievance? What is wrong with society, and what we're allowing our representatives, when we vote for them, we have the control because we decide who gets in elections.
But we don't hold them accountable. So that
we
don't
don't,
matter.
and we don't
Back to
follow
accountability.
afterwards.
That's your word, no.
Accountability.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't see what they're voting. We don't look at their record afterwards. And instead, he did a good job. I think my street's paved, so let's get him reelected.
And see, and I'm glad you touched on that, because that's the attitude. See, the power that we do have when it comes down to voting, a lot of us don't use it like we should, or we're so comfortable with who's been there for so many years. Oh, it's just easy to push the button and put them in there and do this, that, and the other. You better ask the people of Ferguson how that worked out for them. For years, they kept voting these same people in and voting them in, or they took the attitude, well, my vote don't count anyway, and this, that, and the other. Okay, now how'd that work out for you? And this has been happening, I'm sure, in Ferguson for years. You know, they've been voting corruption for years, probably didn't know they were voting corruption until... because they figure, they're going to do a great job. They've been doing a great job for a long time, not knowing that they've been raping and corrupting for a long time. So now it finally hits home. So now emotions comes about. So, again, how did that work out for them? It didn't work out for them. So that's the reason how come we have to get away from the traditional and just pushing a button and voting just to be voting, and know what you're voting for, know who you're putting in there, because the people that you're putting in there could affect not only your community but your whole city.
And remember, them schools was like that before they closed them.
Right.
The children just jumped up. The teachers just jumped up because it affected them. And remember this: when you close a school, you close a village.
Yep.
You close the whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
You break the ties that these family members have, because the school is what brings them together. Parents' nights, PTA or whatever, they go to the school and talk. And here's these poor kids. I was fortunate to go to Catholic schools. But everybody deserves an education. Everybody. And to close schools in black neighborhoods while you're building more in white neighborhoods, to me that's appalling. And I'm white. That's appalling. And it's like, well, why don't we just build a wall around the south side of Chicago and just say, hey, this is prison. The good people could come out, but everybody else, once we put you behind the wall, you got to stay there. Was that Escape from New York where they did that?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, what is wrong with you, Emmanuel? What is wrong with most of our lawmakers, and what is wrong with us for letting it happen? We allowed it. It was our watch.
You named the movie. Don't forget the movie sends a trend. They showed you Detroit on RoboCop, but you just thought it was just a nice, fine movie.
Yep.
Or they show you a scary movie, and you don't believe it's scary. It's called The Walking Dead, and we have emulated them quite well.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Absolutely.
And
That's and like I said, I can't get away from that word accountability until we actually do it and be accountable. Guess what? You can't make change by doing the same thing, but you can't get different results by doing the same thing over and over.
And we have one example. What was there was 3 groups with the Uptown People's Law Center when it started. Only one's still there, Uptown People's Law Center. All these little groups fade away because people start thinking more about money than the people. We don't make much. I mean,
A baby got killed on 63rd and Cottage today about the Pelly jacket you talking about.
see? And that's where our society's gone.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is WICA 102.3 FM, your Rejoice Gospel Network. This program is presented to you by the Crawford Broadcasting, Miss Geraldine Smith, and A Pleasant Encounter. We'll say goodnight to you, but before I go, I have to say thank you again to Mr. Donald Crawford of the Crawford Broadcasting for allowing this humanitarian arm of his radio station to go forward. WICA 102.3 FM, and I bid you good night.
You have been listening to A Pleasant Encounter with Miss Geraldine Smith. We hope that you've enjoyed your journey with Miss Smith and pray that you've been inspired, uplifted, and edified by her story of faith. Listen next Sunday at 8:30 p.m. for A Pleasant Encounter. Remember, Philippians 4:13 says that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Rejoice 102.3 is equipping our listeners for leadership, ministry, and economic empowerment. Want to know how? Tune in Tuesdays starting at 5 p.m. for the Equipping People to Lead broadcast with Pastor Greg House. At 6 p.m., get 15 minutes of a power-packed ministry with Pastor David Paul of Spiritual Life Crusades. And round out the half hour at 6:15 with Living Grace Church as Pastor France brings an all-inspiring word from the Lord, helping you to live a full and complete life. We are Rejoice 102.3.
Nothing makes your holiday parties or family gatherings sizzle like the taste of a delicious honey-baked ham from your longtime friends at the Honey Baked Ham Company, located at 8615 South Stony Island. Call 773-734-6700 to place your order now.
It is with great pleasure that I welcome you to today's graduation ceremony. Students, when you hear the reason or reasons for your absences throughout the years, please exit the auditorium without your high school diploma. Once you've exited, remove your cap and gown and proceed into the unknown. Too tired. Family trip. Part-time job. Helping around the house. Sick day. Starting the holidays early. Just because.
Starting in the 6th grade, students who miss 18 days or more of school in a year for any reason will fall behind and risk not graduating high school.